Hey guys, my name is Matthew, and this is my review of The Answer Is by Alex Trebek. The Answer is a memoir written by Alex Trebek. It offers many glimpses into his life, which is expected from a memoir, but it's written much differently than you might expect. The narrative isn't free-flowing. That's the way a lot of memoirs are written, and often they do jump around in time, but this one does that even more so. The structure of the book is lots of very short chapters, like 1 to 3 pages per chapter. And each chapter is titled with a question, similar to the Jeopardy format that many of us are very familiar with. In this review, I'm going to be listing many of my observations of the book, starting with some of my favorite things about the book, and then moving through to some of my least favorite things about this memoir. First of all, and the reason you would read a memoir like this to begin with, is I absolutely loved getting to know who Alex Trebek actually was. I've never had the opportunity to learn much about his life, where he came from. Obviously I knew he was born in Canada, but apart from that, I really haven't known much about him. And that has been a bit of a shame because I spent a lot of my life listening to him. My family watched Jeopardy growing up, and so it was wonderful to get to know him a little bit. Another thing I really enjoyed about this book is I loved that the book was not ghostwritten. So many memoirs are someone hires out a writer and they write the book for them, and this, just by the style, clearly couldn't have been. Or if it was, then they did an amazing job of making it look like Alex Trebek wrote it. The writing style is very casual and simple. Part of what makes me think this was not ghostwritten is there are several sentences that are very brief and arguably sentence fragments. There are a couple run-on sentences, and you can tell that Alex wrote those things and kind of meant you to read them that way. His voice really comes out. Actually, the whole style of this book was really good for me. I so much so appreciated it because it felt like I was talking to my grandpa. The way the short stories came out and we saw brief glances of different times in his life. Sometimes he would add in an arbitrary detail and not elaborate on it at all, and it really did feel like I was talking to my grandpa. And I think part of that comes from something else I really enjoyed, which was the transparency that Alex Trebek had in his writing. It would have been really easy to write this book in a way that it hides so much, but instead he wrote this book in a way that was very transparent. He showed his age, and he showed his failing health and his degrading memory in the way that he wrote the book. He didn't just make up details or pretend like he remembered things that he didn't, and I really, really appreciated that. Also, he didn't try to clean up his past and make it look like he was the hero of all of his stories. And there's some details that Alex adds to the story that just give it a lot of flavor. I think you guys are going to love, for instance, the part of the story where he talks about his relationship with dirty language. Overall, the book style is warm and conversational, and it makes it really easy to jump into. Also, each piece of the narrative is so short, it's really easy to read a couple of the narratives, read a couple of the chapters, then put the book down and leave it till later. This could be an easy one that you pick up and put down and just whenever you've got time, decide to read a chapter. The book is humorous, and it's got emotions all over the place. It'll make you feel the feels, it might make you cry, it probably will make you laugh. Overall, the whole kind of breadth of human emotion is put in this book in different ways. A couple things I didn't like as much about this memoir, or things that I kind of wished about it. First of all, although Alex covered so many different types of topics and so many different stories and so many different times in his life, I felt like I was missing the depth from any of it. Right when I was starting to really get into a story or a narrative or an idea that he was discussing, he was already done and we were on to the next chapter. And I think he really missed out on some opportunities to go deep on a couple of things that he was talking about, or a couple stories that I really would have appreciated. And another thing that's related is that the book felt really jumpy or choppy. It really was like each story was short and spliced off from either side of it, and it created a disjointed reading experience. It felt like he was getting ready to put out a novel as quickly as he could, but he wasn't necessarily creating a finished product. And maybe that is what was going on. So who is this book for? Honestly, if it wasn't written by Alex Trebek, I would say it was for nobody. The book isn't particularly well written, and while it's interesting, it's too disjointed to be interesting if you don't know who Alex Trebek is. But if you're like me and you grew up watching Jeopardy and this man is a staple in your household, this is definitely the book for you. If you're even curious about who Alex Trebek is, the book is a quick enough read that it's probably worthwhile. You get a lot of fun details about his life, things that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and I think it's worth it. If you have no idea who Alex Trebek is, then you probably shouldn't read this book. It definitely won't be worth it, and you won't get anything out of it, probably. I really enjoyed the read, and I think you might too, if you have even a small desire to get to know Alex Trebek more. This has been my review of The Answer Is by Alex Trebek. If you enjoyed this content, do feel free to like and subscribe, and as always, stay safe out there.